So we're live. This is actually a casual, very casual live presentation. One that I had to change just a little bit, try to realign my day to day. I'm adding in a day of errands. That's basically what this was, a day of errands. Wasn't able to do a stream this morning, this afternoon. Just a lot of errands, just a lot of things to do. But I find that, these restaurants, these big restaurants like Red Lobster, some of the restaurants I like, Black Angus, some Mexican restaurants, El Torito, Claim Jumper's gone. And basically, I relegate myself to the smaller, big restaurants, mostly for breakfasts. I'm talking about like the big, like the Black Bears, Cracker Barrel, places like that. They all do cost money to go. And when I think of Red Lobster, actually, I talk about them. But a lot of those restaurants that were around back when I was a little bit younger, they were the places to go. Now they still are, but I think sometimes they had to rebrand themselves, and that's why some of them are having problems. Because when you rebrand yourself in the new millennium, I think that's why sometimes they fall out of favor because people like us move on, regardless of how old we are. Some of us move on to other restaurants. I am concerned. I do go to them once or twice, the Red Lobster there. Outback once in a while, even though it's an okay restaurant, sells steaks. I've tried some of the other steakhouses, but they're not quite the same, but they are kind of like the Red Lobsters. Am I getting enough light here? Maybe too much light. They are kind of like the Red Lobsters. When you talk about TGIF, Chili's, all those restaurants like that, BJ's, some of your sporty restaurants, even Red Robin can be looked at as kind of semi-big because I see a lot of older people going into Red Robin more than I think about. Older people like myself still go to Red Robin. They go to the other hamburger place. I see more of them than I do younger people per se. But I'm going to say the same thing about Outback is probably not as old as some of the restaurants that like Red Lobster have been around a long time. But changing trends do change. How much things cost when you go into a restaurant? That always changes. What type of service they give. We can always talk about that some restaurants give bread and some don't. And even back in the day when you didn't give bread, sometimes your better half always said, "Where's the bread?" But is it the kind of bread you want? I just don't want any bread. My favorite is pumpernickel, but they don't serve pumpernickel. Some restaurants have a variety of breads. I can't think of them right now. Some of them have great cheddar biscuits, right? Muffins. They taste very good. You put a lot of butter on it. You eat plenty of that. Now, of course, when you go to the Mexican restaurant, it's chips. You want plenty of chips and you want the right hot sauce. And if you ask for the hottest, they will give it to you. You can have 2 or 3 hot sauces there and still enjoy your food. Now, when it comes to drinks, I would say that Latin restaurants are pretty good with alcoholic drinks in general. Not saying that the other ones don't have it, but it seems like the menu is different. The other places have drinks, but sometimes they're not sporty enough. And that's why I am thinking about why is Outback closing 70 stores? 70 locations. They're under the Bloomin' brand label. Publicly traded. Bloomin' brand. So when you look up Outback on the ticker, what pops up is Bloomin' brands because they're the ones, they're the investments that actually own Outback. And they own a few other places too. I'll probably get that before we get there. I'm going to look at Bloomin' brands again, even though I probably talked about it in the past. But right now, publicly traded stock, if you wanted to buy stock right now, it's $6.49. Went as high as $6.55. BLMN, if you ever want to go into buying stock on Outback. So yes, I'm going to add that on to my little talks every now and then, publicly traded stocks or not being on stock market, because that has a lot to do with their reinvestment practices. Trying to put money back into the system of the stores and closing them. We know why they're closing. I need me another pad here to talk about why they're closing. Now I got the AI overview. It's better me get an AI overview so I won't be infringing much on copyright talk or whatever, even though I'm not going to post it. I want to keep this talk as general and as entertaining as I can. Bloomin' Brands is its parent company. And they have a turnaround plan. It says here. They closed 21, it involves 21 restaurants. Now mind, they already closed quite a few restaurants in 2024, the end of 2024. They haven't renewed any leases for additional 22 locations, as it says here, most which will close over the next 4 years. And they're also going to close 41 underperforming locations. But they said in a prior round here. And now these closures are to what? To strategize their financial performance. That's what they want to do. Reinvesting it in the restaurant and renovation. And that's what all of them are doing, right? They all are doing those types of things. But sometimes when you walk in the store, you say, what reinvestment, what financial plan that they're doing? Doesn't they change any seats around? Is the counter any differently? Is the bar situated in certain kind of ways? Are you allowed to walk this way to go to the restroom or that way? And are they trying to improve their service? Sometimes you have two people walk. Have you been served? Yes, I have, or no, you haven't. But they got a list here. Lucky I'm using the AI format here. 21 restaurants are closed in 2025. And we're talking about this year, right now. And we did say 22 will not renew any leases. And the previous closures, they said 41 underperforming locations in 2024. And it said the majority of which were Outback steakhouses. Now, their turnaround strategy, relocating funds, which I just said off the top of my head, strategic investments, and debt reduction. The guest experience, service enhancements, I said that, and brand reshaping, and coming in to revive the brand's image to attract new and returning customers. They have 670 locations throughout the USA, down from 750 a decade ago. So it's taken them 10 years to lose 20 because they're going up and down, down and up. But just like I said, they abruptly closed in 21 locations, and that's why it's down now. Well, even though they're building locations, they're moving locations around. You always see an Outback someplace. And I do see them when they're quite crowded. As I said before, sometimes you can't tell if a restaurant is going to close or not. And it's not based on the performance of people standing in line outside on a holiday or on the most crowded times of the week, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You cannot tell. But that means they're hurting somewhere. Sometimes the other Outbacks, you can tell, depending on where they're at, the number of people that come in. Like I said, the Outbacks everywhere. I think the most recent one I went to was in the desert cities, over near the Palm Desert, Palm Springs area. They probably have a couple of more along Highway 111 there. I know of one for sure. But I don't basically eat at those places. And I'm gonna relate to you that my two favorite places right now, I've probably mentioned it before, and I'm talking about regular restaurants. I still like Black Angus because it reminds me of what a restaurant should still be, even though they have lost a lot of locations themselves in the San Gabriel. But the ones I go to, close to the San Gabriel Mountains, San Bernardino, Riverside areas, Outback, there's still some Black Anguses in the San Gabriel area, as well as in the San Bernardino areas and elsewhere, including Nevada. You always see all these restaurants in all these many different places. They look like they're doing good. For instance, I was reading about Dutch Brothers Coffee, how they want to go into the food venue part. They have a few places. I talked about this before. I was going to do a separate video, but I'm going to tie this all in. They are going to establish at least 1,000 more Dutch Brothers in the United States in the next 7 to 10 years, five years maybe, 5 to 7 years. And they very differently, I ain't gonna say different, maybe differently, they are practicing serving food. Now, I don't know what type of food they're gonna be serving, but they're gonna have stiff competition because the article that I read says Starbucks rival. I'm gonna have to, even though I like Dutch Brothers coffee, I also like the other folks' coffee, and they serving food because I do buy food from Starbucks. I do buy food for the uh, coffee, coffee bean and tea leaf. I do buy food maybe sometime from Pete's. I do buy foods for some of the others. Some of them just serve treats. But Dutch Brothers gonna have some extreme competition because right now, I, in my opinion, Starbucks knows how to prepare their food. And so does Pete's, and so does Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf. So if they're gonna go into the food business along with their coffees, just like everybody else, because they want to tap into that market of food and drinks, tea, lemonade. Of course, they have a lot of choices at Dutch Brothers, but they all themed. They're all just a little bit different. You got blended, you got ice. The lemonade is the same way. You got blended, you got iced. The tea is the same way. You got blended ice. They look like they have 100 different types of drinks, and they're going to add in food. Starbucks have cut down a number of the drinks, but the drinks that are very fantastic. Dutch Brothers stuff is fantastic too, but it's on a different sort of level, not label, level. They dress differently. They seem to be a younger crowd. Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf is more conservative looking. I'm not talking about politics. I'm talking about dress codes. They don't have really a standard dress code in Dutch Brothers. They're young, chic, but then again, Starbucks and all the other ones, they're young and chic too. They're with the times. They're still changing. So they want to add food. I hope their food be very good because this is going to be a hard way to go if you're going to go up against Starbucks. I'm not saying that just, but it is the truth. Starbucks have a good packaging together, regardless of how many problems Starbucks is going to because they have so many locations. And the same thing can happen to any one of those coffee houses. Because we know that some of them is going under, and a lot of them are rivals to one another, whether we heard of that coffee shop or not in this part of the Mississippi, on the west, on the western side of the Mississippi. Starbucks is all over the place. I just got to talking about them selling their Chinese business, kind of like teamwork. They're not going to do it all themselves. They sold to some investors that is going to manage it to their way of style, their way of living, their way of trends over in China. But Starbucks still have a good product. Regardless, like I said, of how many problems they go through, they have solidified. Now all they have to do is just maintain their same old thing. There's a lot of young people who work there. There's a lot of us older people who love Starbucks. There's a lot of people who like to jump out into the markets. I like to try other people's coffees because they are a little bit different. It's a novelty. There's plenty of room for everyone to make a little bit of money on the financial scale because Dutch Brothers is a publicly traded entity also. You can buy stock from them, I believe. You can buy stock from almost anyone that is public traded or private or whatever they want to call it. But I'm going to go into this part here about blooming brands. Who own who? Let me see. See how many companies. Let me see. Let me get to the right place. No, I don't want to see you. Say. Uh, Blooming brand. And I still didn't talk about Tim Horton. That they do have places over in the eastern part, upper northeastern part of the United States, and they sell food. I never ate their food, but if I ever encounter again, I would try them first thing. Who does Blooming Brands on? I want to see because I'm always see Blooming Brands is a restaurant holding company. They own several American casual dining restaurant chains. They talk about, let's see, I want to know who they are. I think that's important while I'm online here to find out who they are. Sometimes I don't want to do that much homework on my own because there is a lot to talk about. See. See. See how many. It's very important to see Blooming Brands own. Check this out. Blooming Brands own approximately 1,450 restaurants. Of course, you got Outbacks, you got Carrabba's, Italian Grill, never heard of it. Bonefish Grill, I heard of Bonefish Grill, I never been there. Fleming Prime Steakhouse, I think I've seen that. That's at Fleming Prime Steakhouse and Wine Bar. And that's just a few. But they own 1,450 of them. They are one of the world's largest. I guess those are the main ones. Let's see, read more. Blooming Brands is out of Tampa. I think they only talk about the main ones. The other ones, you'll find out as it goes along. I'm sure there'll be a site, but to look for all of these is something else. But they own that many franchises. Publicly traded, just like BlackRock, if you have a 401k or 403b or something like that invested in your company and you give to that fund, that's almost the same thing. So that means if you uh, if you invest in certain things and you pick them, you're going to own all those restaurants. They can sell them, they can buy them, they can manage them, they can do all those things. And then I talked the other day about Yumi, was it Yumi brand, that they're thinking about selling Pizza Hut. This is the exact same thing. They think about spinning off Pizza Hut, and when you spin off people, if there's publicly traded stock, you either get something for it or nothing. It'll be a single entity. So Outback, like everybody else, is having a problem. I was hearing somewhere else that it was someone who I listened to, even though it's not about this. But why are they still blaming the COVID? Why are they still blaming the pandemic? Why are they still blaming all these things when some of them are really getting back on their feet? Now, I can understand a very small company having problems, but when you're a big company and you're owned by another entity, that should tell you right there that something's happening to the funds. So even though you're closed down, that means you don't have any money for a rainy day. Most places closed up for at least a couple of months. Maybe that's devastating for someone else. But why is it so devastating to a very, very big conglomerate investment chain? Because they were putting their money somewhere else. Their money was tied up probably in their own little private sector world and not putting it back into the companies to make it survive. Instead of doing something about it, they're out there begging for funds. But then again, it's the government trying to put other businesses out of circulation. Why are they having a break in the action when it comes to getting paid, when it comes to allocating funds to make the government run, especially if it's a government? Because if there are not any government employees, that could hurt the private sector also. So if you're a mom and pop restaurant in a big city or a small city and people are laid off, how can they go to your restaurant when you have no customers and they all probably should be in the unemployment line? It's true that some businesses have gotten some money or emergency funds to keep the businesses going. It's true that even when I worked, you only had essential workers. Well, me telling you who I work for, but the places be closed, and they only have a couple of people there. So theoretically, can people do takeout now again since they're not getting enough money to keep the business going with all the lights on? They have enough money to keep the grill going, whether it's electric or gas. So you could say that the government shutdown is just another pandemic prolonged by a bunch of selfish people. Yeah, I said that because if you really care, being in a union myself at one time, being shut down, not getting paid for a month, 3 weeks to a month, and having a certain amount of funds in there to make sure that you can still live in your house. If it was longer than 2 months or 3 months, that would probably be a problem because they do tell you have to have at least 6 months money backup if you own a home, regardless of how much your home costs. Whether you're paying $100 a month in a home from way back when, or you're paying 2 to 3 thousand bucks for a home. But then again, if you're paying 3 thousand bucks for a townhome or home or these brand new homes that they're building all of a sudden on every square foot, multi businesses, business on the bottom, residential on the top, front doors up on the sidewalk, and the sidewalk is no bigger than barely 5 feet from the curve. So what are we talking about here? So that means you're gonna have to have 3,000 times six backup if you lost your job. That's if you buy those $1 million homes. And I'm saying the same thing about leases or anything else. How much backup money do these companies have to have when they're leasing? If they're leasing for 2 years and this new pandemic hit, government shut down, no one is coming to buy food there, how in the world do you expect them to hang around? It doesn't matter if it's food or hardware store. Because if no one is working, they only gonna, if you're in the right frame of mind, you're only gonna get things that's gonna help you maintain a certain lifestyle. And in that case, a certain lifestyle that is less than what you normally are used to. And that's the crutch of it. And that's why stores like Outback, Red Lobster, all these are having problems. That's why they're changing CEOs, because they're trying to bring back a certain flair in this new age. But if the young people in this new age is not getting paid adequate funds, at least $35 an hour. And I read somewhere where $25 an hour, 20 something dollars, $22 is still not enough if your apartment is going up to 1800, 1900. You're going to need more than two people to stay there. So you're going to have a lot of fast food places. Some of them, they're still having problems because they have to pay everyone the new minimum wage. They're starting off, some people, with the 20s, in the $20 range. And because of that, you're going to have less people, yet they're going to raise the prices of the food. And that doesn't even count the artificial shortages. So those things come into play. And that's why Outback is having so many problems. That's why all the restaurants that were once in every city has to step back and have not so many places to take care of. And that's why we lost Big Lot. That's why we lost Soup Plantation. That's why we lost a lot of places. And now everyone has to relearn, if they learn, how to go out and eat with the new financial obligations that we have that have been thrust upon us. This is Robin and Sean, sharing my thoughts on what's going on in the USA and the world. Not thinking I was going to make a long video, but I knew it was going to be long anyway. Partly prepared or not. Using the resources that I have to make sense of it all. I'll see you in my next video, folks. And if we have to talk about the same old thing again, we will. There's always changes going around. You must talk about the same old thing because that's the way you work. That's the way you roll. You become good at what you do because you do the same old thing every day, no matter what job it is, no matter how exciting or how boring it is. You do the same old thing over again. And that's what makes life interesting. And that's why we can afford to do a whole lot of things that a lot of people can't. Talk to you later. Have a great rest of your evening.